Welcome back to Broken Bobby's Transformation Page. If you are new to the page, in 1990 I became involved in the drug gang world. From 92 to '06, I spent a lot of time incarcerated. I tell these stories to let you know it don't have to be you. If you're young and thinking about trying something or you're figuring out how to get out, these are my stories of this lifestyle and how it affected me, and eventually I got out and transformed my life. So let's get into today's story. All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about gang wars and what lockdowns were like in Cali prisons when I was doing time. Uh, they, they would have year-long lockdowns at times, and like basically you had nothing coming really. I mean, you weren't going to yard, none of that stuff. Before I get more into it, if you're new to the channel, subscribe, smash that like button, drop a comment, let me know what you think if you were ever involved in one of these lockdowns. Also, if you know somebody that enjoys this sort of content, share the video. It's really helping us to grow. And hit that notification bell so that when I go live or I drop a new video, you will be informed and you can check it out when you're ready. So let's talk about this. What causes a lockdown? There's a number of things that can cause temporary lockdowns or even longer term lockdowns. And now I'm speaking of 2004, 2005, back in those times. It's a lot different in there now, but in my time, some of the things that would cause a lockdown, obviously a riot between two different groups would definitely cause a lockdown, and those would end up being long term. Um, it could be a nasty removal where somebody gets unalived or something. They would uh, lock down the yard in order for them to do their investigation. Sometimes that could take a week. uh, so those are two of the things. Also, statewide concerns would be another one. It didn't even necessarily have to happen in your penitentiary. Like I've spoke before when I talk about when they executed the leader of the Crips. When Tookie was executed, I heard they locked down Crips statewide for that day. Another time recently, when the Sureños jumped on the guards at Ironwood, I heard they locked down all the prisons for that as well. So that's another thing. Uh, Something else that could cause a lockdown is if, say, you're on A yard and B yard kicks off, then they may lock down the groups that were involved in that riot on B yard, facility wide, or they may just lock the whole place down for a bit to make sure that, until they can gauge the temperature and see what's going on. So, the thing is, though, not all lockdowns are created equal. Like I said, the thing is, if it's a removal or something like that that was really nasty, typically, within a week or so, it would be back to business as usual. Um, you have the yard kickoff, and those become personal. You know what I mean? It's business is the way it's referred to in here. It's just business in there, rather. But it becomes personal if your group gets off with another group and the other group gets the best of you guys. On the next release, you want your get backs. So it can go tit for tat for months, years. Um, Now, let's use the example of the prison riot, which I was involved in quite a few different lower level yards, county jails, but we're talking about prison. So typically, when that happens, once they regain control, after all the tear gas flies and everything, they're going to zip tie you and break you off into your groups. They're going to form a skirmish line with the COs, which is basically a big long line, and they're going to sweep the yard looking for weapons, and they're going to remove any victims that may be in bad shape, all of that type of stuff. Then you're going to be zip tied over amongst your group, and you're going to be there forever. Basically, they're not in any hurry. They're not going to do you any favors. If I've heard stories where if you need the restroom, it's not their problem, type of thing. Like it's nasty. So okay, so I was in a ride at the first CCF. I was in a ride at the second one. Then I landed on the 3-yard eventually. And when I got to the 3-yard, now this was a little different than the other places. This is a higher security. 3 yards medium security. But there had been a riot between the Woods and the Blacks, and we were on lockdown for that. So I come in, I get into my cell, and my cellie tells me, it's war with the Blacks. So, with these lockdowns, basically you are not coming out of the cell. And they had been locked down for like 6 months prior, from what I understand. So what typically goes on during a lockdown, let's get into that. So basically, if your group is part of the lockdown, you're not going to get any store or anything. The trays will be brought and served to you in the cell. They'll pop the little tray cell and put the trays through. You're, like I said, like, you're not going to get any yard. That's out of the question. You're not going to get any day room. You will get showers like twice a week. They come, they cup you up, and they walk you over to the showers, and then they leave you in the showers. And the basic rule of thumb with this, when it's war, is if the other group that you're at war with is out when you come out for showers, you're gonna try to slip your cuffs and go at it. If you can't slip your cuffs, you might be in trouble. So and then another thing that goes on, now keep in mind, the other groups are still getting yards, still getting day room, and all that stuff. It's just the groups that were involved in the riot that are going to be locked down. And so the general rule when there are racial conflicts going on and you're on lockdown is one up, one down in the cell. And basically the idea behind that is, if your door pops, while you're on lockdown for a riot with another group, you are to come out of the cell and see who may be out there on the tier. And if it's who you are on lockdown for being in the riot with, then you are to engage. If you have a weapon, you are to use the weapon. If not, get to throwing them things and hope that they don't have a weapon. But yeah, that is definitely something that goes on. Also, weapons are being made while these lockdowns are going on. Whether it be cutting up a locker to get a nice piece of steel to develop a weapon, or something of that nature. But basically, you are constantly watching to see what's going on, see who's getting popped out. And if you hear a door pop, you are definitely up on that, in that window, looking to see what's going on, because it's basically wartime. So if the perceived enemy during that time is on the tier, then it's go time. You are to go. And you'll get the MAC rep coming around. And the idea with that, what the MAC rep is, let me explain that first real quick. It's the Male Advisory Council, I believe. And what the MAC rep's job is, basically, is he's the buffer between the COs and the inmates. So if the inmates want to get a message to the COs, the MAC rep's going to handle that. If the administration wants to get a message to the inmates, they're going to call the MAC reps in. I was the MAC rep in reception, and they would call us in from time to time into the office. Me, the PISA MAC rep, the Southsider Mac Rep, the Black Mac Rep. And they would, if they had something that they wanted to get out to everybody, then that would be the time that they would do that. And they would give us that message, and then we would go to basically the people who had the keys and convey that message. Okay, so now another thing on that is when they had a message that was going to go out, and the thing is, you didn't want to go straight to the guy with the keys, because the cops are paying attention to that stuff. And so you would kind of make your way around and talk to different people, and somewhere along the line you would get to the guy with the keys. But you didn't want to give up game by going straight to the guy with the keys, because basically you'd be dry snitching on who had the power. And the reason they didn't want administration to know who actually had the keys is because a lot of times they would just throw them into ADSEG and do their best to validate them and get them on a shoe term, the indeterminate shoe term. What they would do is, if they were able to validate somebody as working with the big four organizations, then certain things would get you a point. Tattoos, if you were caught with a kite or something like that, a bunch of different things would get you validation points. And if you reached a certain point, then they would validate you, and they would send you to the shoe on an indeterminate shoe, where basically the only way you're going to get out is if you parole. Otherwise, you were stuck back there. And that happened to a lot of people for a long time. All of that stuff is over now, as I understand it, with the end to hostilities agreement. But that was a real thing for a long time. So you got the MAC reps coming around. And what the administration wants from the MAC reps being let out and talking to the people is to see if, we're ready to make peace, basically, and whether we're able to program on the yard together, and whether they can release the groups that are on the lockdown. But in all reality, and the administration knows this, they're coming around talking business. They're, basically letting us know, hey, if the door's cracked, it's still on, or now it's a dead issue type of thing. And so that's what happens. Then the MAC reps will go back and report to the administration. And to be honest with you, I don't think they ever go back to the administration and say that, no, it's still on. They're always going to go back and say, yeah, it's a dead issue. Like, we're ready to program. So what the Department of Corrections will do then is they start letting out small groups of the ones that were involved in the riot, like maybe 5 or 10 of each group, and they're just watching to see what's going to happen. And typically the smaller groups that are let out, these are some of the more prominent people within the groups. So basically the way administration's looking at it is, if the leadership or people that are influential can come out on the yard and program together, then everyone else will fall in line. Let them out, and typically it's going to crack again and again and again. And these, like I said, these yards will stay locked down for a year, 18 months. I've heard of 2-year lockdowns. Really, they get around to the point where everybody's just tired of being locked up, and they learn to program again. But that's what a typical lockdown looks like in the California Department of Corrections. The thing is, as a wood, like, you're in there bird bathing, you're working out, you're doing everything that you need to do in that cell. And, eventually those soups dry up, and now you're just eating state food, and state food sucks. It's better than county, I will say that, but you could do a lot better with the commissary list and getting store. So basically they just wait you out, and the COs get that hazard pay, which I'm sure they enjoy. And eventually it goes back to business as usual until the next riot kicks off. Like I said, this was back in 2004 and 2005. I'm not sure how it is now. From what I hear, there's not a lot of big, widespread events kicking off between the groups because the leadership is out now, and they don't want to go back, basically, so they're keeping the peace. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Family, fitness, and freedom are what helped me to not have to be in these types of situations anymore. And I think they can help you as well. Like I say, it's just about making good decisions and compounding those decisions and, just being a productive member of society, going to work and, easy money isn't really easy money, in my opinion. Yeah, you can make it fast, but you're going to blow it fast as well. And you're always looking over your shoulder. So, I decided not to be that guy a long time ago. And, don't look at the mountain, guys. Just start climbing.